Hey everyone, my name is Nick Raushenbush. I'm co-founder and COO of Shogun, and today we're going to talk about why Q4 is a great time to go headless. So before we jump in, a bit about me. I'm co-founder, COO of Shogun. I'm also an investor. I invest in anything from e-commerce software to online pharmacies to space technology. And if you're not familiar with Shogun, Shogun is a software company empowering brands to create exceptional e-commerce experiences. We have two products, Shogun Page Builder, Shogun Frontend. Urge you to go check them out. We have over 18,000 clients and over 170 team members. Here are today's presentation goals. By the end of the presentation, you'll understand what headless commerce is, why brands are interested in headless, why PWA is a popular form of headless. We'll review a case study from Nomad. We'll talk about what it takes to build a PWA, taking a dev-centric approach versus a merchant-centric approach to front-end tech stack. We'll talk briefly about Shogun Frontend, and then we'll go into why Q4 is a great time to go headless and review key takeaways. First of all, what is headless commerce? This has become a really popular phrase, especially like in the past year or two. Simply put, headless commerce is a decoupling of the front-end technology from back-end technology. So you can imagine it like this. Your e-commerce platform is kind of like the body in this analogy, and it's your back end. It does all of the back office stuff that is so important for running and managing an e-commerce business. Then the neck is an API and SDK layer. And what headless means is that you get to choose the technology or technologies that comprise the head, that control the front end, the visual presentation layer, the part of the site that the shoppers see and interact with. And headless isn't just one thing. It can come in many different flavors or varieties. You can do a fully custom coded front end. You could do a progressive web application style build with a headless content management system. You could, if you're a very large company, use a digital experience platform like Adobe Experience Manager or Acquia or Bloomreach. Or if you're a minimally transactional company, but you have a strong emphasis on content, you could even do your front end in WordPress. There's no right or wrong way to approach headless. It really depends on what technology or technologies are going to be most useful for your business. But fundamentally, it again is just using a different technology other than the e-commerce platform for the visual presentation layer, this part of the site the shoppers see and interact with. So why are brands so interested in headless, right? Well, it's really about the value propositions that headless empowers brands to realize, right? Namely, unparalleled site speed, rich visual merchandising, and advanced content management. Let's touch on each of these. So in regards to unparalleled site speed, certain forms of headless can make sites load instantly. We're talking very specifically about progressive web application technology. The reason why merchants find this interesting is because when you make a site load instantly, it drops the bounce rate, it can increase the e-commerce conversion rate as well as average order value. But oftentimes merchants spend a lot of time considering just that value proposition when there are two other very important ones. With headless, you can really make a site experience that's a lot closer to something like apple.com than an out-of-the-box theme from your e-commerce platform. And with this, you can create unique and differentiated branding experiences to distinguish yourself from things like your competitors. And you can do so without taking a performance hit. You can have really rich experiences without causing the site to slow down. In addition to that, you can adopt software that really allows you to extend the content management functionality that comes native with the e-commerce platform. You can go beyond that basic CMS. And this is great for use cases like internationalization when you want to expand your footprint to Germany and France and Spain and the like, and you want to have content that's very specific to those locales. It also allows merchants to continue to enjoy codeless content management solutions. And those are the primary drivers for going headless as I see them. So why is PWA such a popular form of headless? Well, what it effectively does is it brings a native app-like experience, but injected directly in the browser. So you don't have to deal with the friction of pushing a consumer to go and do an install via the App Store. Now, the real thing that a PWA does that merchants find particularly interesting is that in the initial load is normal, right? 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds. But in that load, the progressive web application fetches the entire rest of the site, which means that every click that the consumer makes on the site after that is perceptively sub-second. The reason why this is super compelling is because when you create that instant load time, it has a direct impact on bounce rate, right? Bounce rate tends to drop. And rule of numbers, that also causes e-commerce conversion rate to go up. And it's really found that when a site is more performant, it gives a better experience, and that actually leads to higher order average order volume, or AOV. So those are the core reasons why PWA is so popular, because for many merchants it can give a semblance of line of sight to direct return on investment because of the impact that it has on bounce rate, e-com conversion rate, and average order value. Let's take a look here at this case study from Nomad. They adopted Shogun Frontend, and Shogun Frontend's output is a React.js progressive web application. Now, Nomad saw a 25% increase in their e-commerce conversion rate. They also saw a 25% increase in revenue per user, or average order value. And we know that this was correlated to the speed because they also saw a decrease of over 15% on their bounce rate. But beyond the performance aspect of it, it also really allowed Nomad to do things that they were unable to achieve before, having to operate within the confines of their theme, right? It allowed them to not have to compromise on design for fear of a performance hit, or because the HTML templating language was too inflexible to accommodate that type of experience. And if you go check out their site, you can see what I mean with some of their really impressive visual merchandising. So a great question. How do you build a progressive web application from scratch? A lot of e-commerce companies who are adopting headless right now are choosing to adopt a variant of headless that includes a progressive web application architecture or output. And so here we'll go through the 6 components that are required to make a progressive web application. The first thing that you need is some good JavaScript developers, because you'll custom code your storefront using a JavaScript framework like React.js or Vue.js. Now, in order to perform that magic trick with prefetching the entire site, you will also need to use a server-side rendering framework like Gatsby.js or Next.js. Now that you've gone headless, you'll also be responsible for CDN and hosting. So you'll want to leverage a company like Accel or Netlify or Fastly or Akamai for your CDN needs. Additionally, if you still want a modicum of codeless content management control and not have to run all of those changes directly through development, you would probably integrate a headless content management system like Contentful, Prismic, or Sanity. Now, to be clear, these headless CMS, they're not quite like page builders. You can think of them in terms of like a conventional developer CMS, so more like schemas or content groups of content data. In addition to that, you'll need middleware to connect your progressive web application front-end build to your e-commerce platform backend. They need to be able to talk to each other and send data back and forth. This middleware can sometimes have a bit of deeper complexities because it needs to be written in a performant manner, yet sometimes data needs to be kept in real time for the front end, like inventory, right? You can imagine that if your inventory was out of sync between your front end and your back end on something like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, That would be very troublesome, as you could, oversell. So in order to keep the performance, the speed intact, and still get that data in real time, you'll need to leverage something like service workers. The final component is also middleware, and it's actually middleware for each one of your third-party applications for reviews, email collections, subscriptions, and the like. Again, you'll want to have this middleware written in a performant manner. You can't integrate it the normal way, generating an API call upon page load, because that would have an adverse impact on the performance. So to give you an example of what middleware would look like, if you have a reviews provider, what you would do is create middleware that runs a background job to that reviews provider, requesting any additional or any new reviews data, pulling it into a content management system on the back end so it can be served out the front end without generating an API call upon page load. So that is how you build a progressive web application from scratch. And this is generally referred to as the Jam Stack. And you can leverage these developer tools to create a progressive web application. Now, I will say this. I think that a lot of those developer tools in the Jam Stack are a strong fit for companies that have a lot of development resources or at considerable scale where they want fine-grained control over each one of those aspects, like the JavaScript framework, the server-side rendering framework, what CDN they're using, what headless CMS they're using, things like that. However, I would say that for some merchants, they may prefer a more unified platform-style solution. So that's what we have created with Shogun Frontend. It effectively combines the best core technologies for content management and performance into one piece of software. And everything is all seamlessly integrated in terms of the key technologies. It's also platform agnostic, meaning that you get all of this benefit for a next generation, highly performant front end, while still, of course, getting to leverage your very powerful e-commerce platform like Shopify, BigCommerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud for your backend. Again, I also think that the developer-focused approach is a good route, but definitely for teams that do have those development resources and really value being able to have fine-grained control over those 6 core technologies that I mentioned. And so what Shogun Frontend is on its face, if you were to hop in the software and check it out, it is a visual experience manager, which is effectively a drag and drop editor for pages with a codeless sidebar with styling and configuration controls. We also have a native content management system, like a miniature version of Contentful or Prismic, native in the software and seamlessly integrated with the experience manager. Although it is a merchant-focused piece of software, it's very developer-friendly. So we have tools for agencies and in-house developers for local and integrated development. We also have a starter theme, GitHub integration, and the ability to code completely custom sections using JSX and CSS and making those sections codeless and reusable for non-technical team members. And of course, the output of Shogun Frontend is a lightning-fast React.js progressive web application. However, it does not require the client to have to think through all of those 6 different components of technical architecture required to render a PWA. It's all kind of done for you. All right, so why is Q4 a great time to go headless? Well, Q4 is generally a time when companies are going into code freeze, right? Black Friday, Cyber Monday is high season, so most e-commerce companies really don't want to make any changes to their site during Q4 because they probably have something that's working for them, and making any changes, especially during such a critical time, could, if there's errors or bugs or things like that, could end up meaning that they don't get to realize the full fruits of Black Friday, Cyber Monday season. So generally it's thought of that October and November are off limits for merchants making any type of big architectural change to their site. That being said, implementing a headless build isn't something that you can just do, overnight, right? It's very similar to doing a custom theme build, which generally takes about 8 to 12 weeks or 2 to 3 months. And it's generally done with the help of an agency. Therefore, I think that Q4 is actually a great time to consider going headless, because you can effectively engage with an agency or have your in-house developers heads down working on that new build, and knowing that by the time they're done, the high season is actually going to be over. And that allows the merchant really to go into the new year on the right foot, right? December can sometimes, for e-commerce companies, be a lull because of how much growth there was during the high season of October and November. And so I think that actually is a great time for split testing the old site versus the new site. Generally, when clients are rolling out Shogun Frontend, they don't do a hard flip, right? Where they're going and saying, okay, we're just going to flip everything over to the new build. Instead, what they do is start off by running 10% of traffic to their new headless build, keeping 90% of the traffic with their existing or old site. And then usually after testing and monitoring that for a week or two, they'll flip to more of a 50-50 split. And then when everything is nice and stable, they're seeing the results that they expected, then they'll do a flip over 100% to the new site. And so generally, I think that it can be helpful to do that type of exercise on a lower traffic month like December, just because it's not high season. Additionally, that will allow the merchant to effectively go into January with a pretty clean comparison set up to do year over year for the performance. In this case, it would be 2021 on the old site and 2022 on the new headless build. So again, here's some key takeaways from today's presentation. Remember the definition of headless commerce. Headless commerce is really a decoupling of the front-end technology from the back-end e-commerce platform itself, right? You're basically using specialized technology or technologies to control the front end, the visual presentation layer, the part of the site that the shoppers actually see and interact with, versus the back-end, back-office stuff that stays with the e-commerce platform. And of course, these two systems are integrated seamlessly via middleware at the API and SDK layer. And they can basically work with each other flawlessly. It's again important to remember that headless actually it isn't a single thing. There's many different approaches. There's many different technologies out there. And it really depends on the use case for the merchant, for which front-end technology is right for them. The benefits of headless commerce include unparalleled site speed, especially if you're adopting something like a progressive web application solution. They also empower rich visual merchandising that really isn't possible when you're operating within the confines of a default theme or an HTML templating language. Really, the world opens up quite a bit when you adopt a progressive web application architecture, because at that point you can create really rich content-heavy experiences, and they're still going to be highly performant in terms of load time. And there's a whole host of other things that a framework like React.js just makes a whole lot easier than trying to create that type of experience using an HTML templating framework like Liquid. And I think that we got a good sense of this from the most recent Shopify Unite announcements from Toby, where he really talked about React being the future of e-commerce front end. In addition to that, it's important to remember that headless also really empowers plain and simple advanced content management, right? As e-commerce companies scale, they sometimes find that they truly need an advanced content management solution because their business is just becoming more robust, be that expanding internationally, be that creating additional brands out of a parent brand, or just having a ever increasing amount of content that's being displayed on the site, and needing a solution that's not only going to allow for powerful organization of that content, but then a solution that also offers a highly visual, what you see is what you get type of editor that's friendly to marketers, merchandisers, to make updates to existing web pages and to create new web pages. And why is PWA such a popular approach to headless? Well, effectively, a PWA, again, is like getting all the benefit of a native mobile app, but directly in the browser, not requiring a download. In that initial load time, which is normal, it prefetches the entire site. Therefore, every click by the shopper after that is sub-second, even on mobile, even with bad reception. When you greatly decrease the load time from an e-commerce website, what tends to happen is the bounce rate drops, and then the e-commerce conversion rate goes up, as well as the average order value increases. Usually, creation of a progressive web application involves stitching together 6 different core developer-focused technologies, commonly referred to as the Jamstack. With Shogun Frontend, we've taken a bit of a different approach, which is basically creating a unified platform solution that is truly merchant-friendly and delivers the value propositions of headless commerce, namely software and features for creating rich visual merchandising experiences, enabling advanced content management, and of course, providing unparalleled site speed. Hopefully this was helpful. If you're interested to learn more about what we talked about today, you can feel free to go to getshogun.com/frontend. And if you just want to talk to us to learn more about these technologies or our technology, you can reach out to us at sales@getshogun.com. Hopefully today's presentation was helpful, and thank you so much for making the time.
Nick, incredible presentation. And my key takeaway was the unparalleled site speed. Headless commerce with a PWA approach just takes care of. From a rollout standpoint, if you were to kick off from December, essentially right after the BFCM event, you'd be looking at a January, February, rollout. Okay, let's February rollout, and it give you sufficient time to really go through a PWA setup all through the year. I didn't realize that there was a what you see is what you get interface after the deployment, which was very, very interesting to find out. I guess people would just keep asking questions in the comment area. For the next 5 minutes or so. It's wonderful to have you on Commerce Accel.
Yeah, such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Brilliant. Cheers.